Hello, hello, hello. So I hope everybody's having an awesomely great weekend. This is 50 pips, 24th of November, 2013. Not making any trade calls or recommendations because you and only you are responsible for the trades you may decide to take. The fact you're listening to this means you've read, you understand, you accept all the disclaimers on the blog, understanding that this is just for educational purposes only. So what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Let's look at the charts. Well, I mean, first of all, just keep in mind that this is going to be not a super interesting week in terms of data releases, so fairly light. There are some important data points, but globally speaking, especially after last week, fairly light. It is a holiday week in the sense that we've got Thanksgiving on Thursday, so U.S. markets are going to be closed, and then we have a shortened trading day on Friday, so also keep that in mind. So let's look at what we got going into the week. So let's do, as usual, we'll do some futures and then do some Forex. So in terms of futures, what I wanted to look at is I want to look at gold. And as we see gold pressing lower here, a lot of people getting very, very bearish, looking for this to break below those 1200s, go into 1150, etc., etc. My only comment here really hasn't really changed since we made that first test back down into the 1200. So, and no surprise, everybody following the blog know that basically I was very, very bullish at these lows, looking for this to have been a low for the year. Now what's happened is we moved all the way back up into the 1400. We got sold off and we're hovering around these 1250s, okay? So I still think that unless we get some kind of very, very aggressive move and hold below these lows, but especially below the 1150, this could still be shaping up for some kind of a double bottom or some kind of bottom here for a move all the way back up into 1400s. So basically the move down hasn't been convincing me that much in terms of the actual action, etc., etc. But if we're just going to look at levels, what's happening is that we're hovering around the 1200, 1250. 1200 is a key support, and that 1300 has been a pivotal level for a long time. So what you want to look at going into the week is how price behaves around this number. So if on any press lower, you keep on getting buyers coming in, you see wicks on the daily, it's probably a sign that there's pretty good support here. Now, if we start moving down very aggressively back down into this level, I don't think it's a close your eyes and buys, but I'd be very, very focused to see what happens on approach. And if we break, especially if we get one of those classic break to flush out a lot of longs, and then we start seeing buyers coming in. I think it's going to be interesting in terms of making it a bit more graphic. 1250 pivotal for 1300 and 1200, but I really think this is going to potentially be one of the most interesting charts going into the end of the year for position trades or bigger swing trades, okay? Speaking of that, we've got another interesting chart we've talked about, and basically that's the crude chart, okay? So if we look back down, we talked about crude coming back down into this very, very strong support zone, and basically we had this confluence of the 100, 200 on the weekly, okay? And what's been happening is that's exactly where price is basing, right? Or at least trying to find support. So what I'm looking at is this range we've been is basically for these 3 weeks. And you see we're pretty much stuck behind around these 95.50s and 92.50s. So I really think we need to get a weekly close outside this range to see a bit more follow through. So below 92.50 or above these 95.50s range pretty much. And so basically it's this 3 weeks range. But I think clearly the way this is trading, I'm still leaning towards the fact that this is a possible intermediate low being set, and I'd be looking for this, especially if we close back above this 3 week range, to start to make its way back up into the 100, okay? If we start to close below the 92.50s and below this 200-day moving average, then I would expect at least short term to see those 90s get tested very, very, very quickly, okay? So on breaks of that range, the two levels I'm looking at is 90 to the downside and 100 to the upside, okay? And last but not least, in terms of futures, what are we looking in terms of the ES? So we keep on saying about the ES that it would be healthy to see some kind of a retracement, but it just doesn't look like the market is ready to move down yet. So I'm still patiently looking for selling opportunities, right? And I'm absolutely not stubborn about it. I've been trading the short side, just tactically intraday. There've been some good opportunities, but really we haven't really gotten a chance to see a good, decent retracement, right? And by decent retracement, I'm talking for something like between a 2 and a 4% retracement. So right here, again, going into the week, I'm going to be looking. I still have the feeling it doesn't change every week. It's not really changing. I still think we probably need to fail from higher levels. But the more we move up, the more interested I am in looking for the market to start to normalize and to see some kind of a healthy retracement. Should we press aggressively above the 1800? To give you a couple of levels, I'll be looking at basically 1812, 1820, 1827. This is going to be an interesting zone for me, especially if we get a press higher early in the week. To the downside, really, 1770s and 1740s are the most interesting levels. So let's do it this way. So basically it starts here with the 70s and then into the 40s. Those are the levels I'll be looking at. But again, it's very tricky to try and pick a top. It's very tricky to try and pick a bottom. It's not a fun way to try and fight flows. So it's best to just pick your stops, try to look at it and try to pick your battles, right? And patiently wait for the market to come to you rather than get stubborn. But here, again, would be healthy to see some kind of retracement. I think it would be healthy to see a 2 to 4% retracement. I suspect that'll get bought. But again, here I'm just patiently waiting. Now let's look at some of the Forex side. So again, no surprise. We've been pretty bullish on cable and on GPB across the board, and I think you could see pretty much we got most of the targets we were looking at on the GPB CHF, GPB CAD, GPB JPY hit, and again, I'm still looking for those to continue to try and press higher and rotate higher. I think cable, we looked at it last week, and we said, the weekly was very telling, right? Very aggressive into that support zone. Buyers come in, very, very bullish close on the weekly, and we said high odds. We thought we're going right back up to test those 6350s, and that's what's playing out. So I think, again, if we need to fail, we probably need to fail from a higher level, but my outlook really hasn't changed for a long time. Pretty much since those 150s. I'm still looking for 6350s and possibly into the 166s. If you're looking at it in terms of 4-hour chart, clearly a lot of people were getting excited around the 6170s. A lot of guys looking at this 78.6 retracement of the move down. This is really not somewhat a way we would use fibs, or I would be looking at that level. We did get a bit of a sell-off because clearly that was a level of interest, but got bought right again. Very key level. Just buyers kept on supporting, and we're right back at those highs. So here I'd expect this to hold a pretty good bid tone, maybe try to gap up a bit into the open tonight. I haven't looked at quotes, so it may be trading a bit down. I haven't looked at that yet. So going into the week, just keep in mind, right now, short term, most likely it's 6170s to the downside, 6250s right here. So, and then if we break higher, those 6350s. But again, keep in mind, don't forget that those 6350s have been a really, really important. You can go back on the weekly and it's fairly clear to say how important that level has been. So expect to see some kind of selling protecting there, and I'd call that all sellers coming in 6250s into 6350s, and expect to see them give a good shot at defending that. Now, should we see no defense of that, that's really not a scenario when you want to be stubbornly short. You probably just want to wait, right? You want to let things settle because it should be defended. So if it's not, the market's going to be telling you something very, very clear about a level that's being defended numerous times and has held for a really long time. I mean, the last time we traded above those 6350s is pretty much 2011, okay? So if we go knife through butter, you have to respect that. Equally, you know, the normal thing would be to expect some kind of defense. So again, a lot of people are going to be same people who are looking at the double top now are going to be looking at the triple top. Again, we tend to get bullish at triple tops rather than bearish. We'll have to see how this goes. But again, no change in outlook. It's still looking pretty interesting. Going into the week, early sell-offs, I'd look at 61.70s to the upside. Let's see if those 62.50s, 62.60s get protected or not. Okay, what else have we got? What else have we got here? Yen, you know, a lot of people getting excited about yen. So no big change on yen. We're still looking for 139.10s to print, okay? Last week's, basically we started off the, past 2 weeks saying we're looking for 135s to print. So we got 135s. As long as we keep on holding above those 135, 135.50, I'd expect us to continue to rotate higher, and 139.10s is our next target to the upside. Keep in mind that the breakout level, which was that key resistance, now, if the break is good, this should act as valid support, okay? And equally, you know, across the board, USD JPY, we expected that 100 not to hold. We expected this to go back up. We were looking for a very quick move right back up into this next level, which is these 101.50s, okay? Now, I don't expect the 101.50s, if we keep on pressing higher, to have the same kind of effect as the 150s had. So again, my outlook hasn't changed. I'm still looking for us to go all the way back up into the 103s to these highs right here. What I'd be watching now is, as usual, if the move is good, previous resistance, resistance to act as support. And as long as previous resistance acts as support, look for the market to bid this back up to continue higher. If we break below the 150, then expect the market maybe to see some profit taking to try and move back into this 200. But again, this is the key level to watch going into the week. So again, nothing major, no big change in outlook this week. What else have we got? NZD USD. So we talked about this very, very important support, and we said that this was looking, it was holding very, very heavy, but we needed to respect that support, right? So we come back down into the support. It held once, then it broke. Now you want to keep a very close eye on how we behave here, right? Okay, so we've broken back below. We filled this tiny gap that was still open. A lot of people were getting excited about that. And what you want to look at going on early into the week, so you'd expect, you know, if we're going to get sold off hard, at least these highs from last week to hold, and you'd expect to see sellers coming in protecting this whole level to keep the pressure on and break this right back down and continue the pressure on to try and get it retracing even more. You know, you can look at something like 200, and you see as long as we start breaking down, this 200 will start coming back down, and that's probably going to be the big resistance line going down. So you'll have to keep an eye on that. But should we go into the week and should we break back above these 82.50s, and we were discussing about those 82.50s along, you know, don't be surprised to see this pop right back up into 83.50s, okay? So the chart is bearish here, pressure is on, and the bears have a good shot at keeping pressure on and smacking it back down. But you want to keep a very close eye and respect the levels, because if they can't keep it below the 82.50, you know, don't be surprised to see this pop right back up into this pivotal level. So very, very interesting open on Kiwi this week. CAD, what's going on CAD? So basically last week we were looking at CAD. We're trading the short side. We traded a few shorts back down, got stopped out on the remainder of the positions, but, you know, pretty decent trade. Here, this is exactly interesting for the same reasons, right? Look at the daily. So what happened? You got these sellers coming in very, very aggressively. We go back up, bam, clear all the stops, and look at the daily close, right? After we've cleared all the stops, bam, a lot of profit taking coming in right ahead of these two big resistances. So you need to respect this kind of close. So what I'd be looking at going into the week, again, is the 105, right? As long as price can hover around on a Monday, as long as it can hover around 105 and hold above, then expect this to take another stab at those highs going into the week. But if we go into the week and we can't hold quickly, it loses ground at those 105s, then I'd expect it to come right back down and test these 104.20s, 104.50s, start to see profit taking and potentially accelerate to the downside. But really, you need to respect this kind of action, okay? And then last but not least, what do we got here? What are we looking at? We got euro. We haven't done euro. So what's going on in euro? So euro, basically we've got these three big buy points in this big rotation to the upside. So it hasn't really changed. We're still looking for 140s, 141s. That's the bigger 50 back fib. We talked about that quite a few times. It's coming down in this area. I think I just lost a chart, a zone on my, a level on my chart. It should be on the one on the blog. I think I deleted by mistake. So what we're looking at going, so you can look back at the last videos if you want the broader outlook. That's all recorded. And pretty much, I think we got one of those pretty much live. And what's going on here is we're still stuck inside this big chop zone, right? Remember what the zone was: 134.50s, 134, 136.00s, 136.50s, okay? So once we broke back down here and we start to clear stops protecting this range, bam, we went straight into the 50 back, the buy zone here, bam, buyers smacked it back up, previous support, broke through it, didn't act as resistance, and it acted as support again, and we're pressing higher. So clearly this week, it's still all about 36 to 36.50 and 34 to 34.50. But right now, the way this is trading, it looks like, you know, Momo's looking for a press back into that 36.50 level. So what I'd be looking at for this week is for this to continue to try and press higher. Keep a very close eye. Failures in this high range and failures in this whole zone, potentially you could see very quick moves right back down into the 34.50s, 34.00 support, meaning we stay in this chop range in a slow data week, etc., etc. If we go knife through butter and price cannot hold it, bears cannot hold it below 36.00, 36.50s, then I would expect to see us retest those 38.20s, 38.50s extremely quickly, okay? So again, we'll have to see how this is trading, but at the moment, still stuck in this range with upside bias. Let's see how this trades. So again, I hope that was useful. Guys, if you like the content, don't be shy about sharing it. Thanks a lot for listening. I'll see you guys for London Open. Have an awesome weekend. Thanks a lot. All the best. Bye-bye, guys.